there.
Oh, shit.
And 2 dudes in a Honda Civic like smashed me, just like destroyed the bike, and I had just finished the bike, and I was like,
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Tyler. I'm here with Alex Trujillo. We're gonna talk about his 1998 Evo chopper. It's been through a couple phases, so he's gonna kind of go over those with us, and you know how he got the bike and why he built the bike to look like this and everything, and then we'll toss in some riding footage as well.
So I basically got into bikes. Like, my dad bought me a dirt bike when I was probably like 13 or something like that. He'd always been riding bikes since he was a kid. Riding around the streets of Mexico and stuff's cool. And so he was stoked, got me one, started getting really into that, and then realized the minute I turned 18, I went and got my like motorcycle license basically, and then I got a sport bike.
What'd you have?
It was a Kawasaki Ninja 250. It was fucked.
In high school?
Yeah. So I would like take that, like rip it around, whatever. So I rode that around for a while, and then I realized like I was gonna probably kill myself on sport bikes because I like to go fast. So it was a bad idea. So I was like, all right, I'll probably bail on that. And then I thought, Harleys were cool, a little more cruiser style. So I bought I think it was a 01 FXDL. Picked that up. That was the bike that I took across America with the whole crew, you guys and stuff. Great bike, never broke down, never had to do anything to it, never touched it or anything really. And then, so basically how I got here was I had that bike, we did the trip, got back, and then I was like, all right, I saw you guys all in your bikes, and you guys had like done things to your bikes and kind of customized them out or whatever. And so I basically found a guy that had a softail, this 98 Evo, and I traded him. He put cash on top, and then just got to work, started like tearing the bike down with Cameron. He helped me out with that. Started collecting parts.
If I could find it on my computer, I'm gonna add that photo. I have a photo of you the day you got that Softail, and you're sitting there, and the headlight is like the size of a laptop computer.
Dude.
That's sitting on the front of that.
This is massive, dude. That bike was really funny when I first got it.
So you traded it. You had Cameron doing some work. What? Then keep walking through it.
Yeah. So Cameron basically, I literally knew nothing. Like I had never put together a bike besides I forgot to mention I had a Kawasaki KZ1000. That was between my Dyna and this bike actually. And that was a bike that I figured was like cheap enough that I could get. It was fast enough, it was cheap enough that I could kind of like sort of like tinker with it a little bit. So I like chopped a couple things on it, whatever, like nothing crazy, and then had help from a mechanic that we knew, and he kind of helped me with a couple odds and ends and then some wiring as well. And then I rode that around. So this is kind of a funny story. I rode that one around, and then I was going to look at a different Evo, and I blew up the bike on the freeway. That Kawasaki, it was smoked. And I call the guy, and I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm 15 minutes away from like your spot to check the bike out, and I just like blew my motorcycle up. He comes, picks me up. We load the bike onto his trailer. He takes me to his house. We look at the bike. He's like, ride it, check it out, see if you like it. I ride the bike around, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think it's like for me, blah, 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 this and that. He's like, damn, all right, cool, whatever. I'm like, can I shoot you like $70 and you just take me back to my house so I can like drop my bike off? He was like, damn, man, you're like not gonna buy my bike and you want me to like trailer you home? And I was like, sorry, dude, I kind of don't have like another option right now. And he did. So that was another like funny like little random tidbit.
Oh my God.
So then that ended up with this. So Cameron was helping me with the bike, tearing it down, showing me some stuff here and there. It's honestly gone through like a couple hands. Like Cody's helped me out with this bike. Well, he like helped me like dial it in. Jim helped me with a bunch of fab work. The first version, I'm sure you remember, had a springer on it. So when I first finished the bike, it was most of these parts. It had a juice brake in the rear, different sissy bar, springer front end with a really small front wheel. It was like a 17 or an 18, I think, spoolie. And then, so I'll go into like basically what happened was I'd finished it all out. It was good riding. I was riding it around for probably a month or two, and then we're like leaving to go on a trip. And this is when I was living in East LA, and basically like I'm leaving the house and 2 dudes in a Honda Civic like smashed me, just like destroyed the bike. And I had just finished the bike, and I was like, fuck, well, that sucks. Like, now what?
So you had the first version, you got smoked, and then you kind of just put it up on the shelf for a while, didn't want to think about it, and then you rebuilt it, obviously changed a couple things. Let's talk about what you changed.
Yeah, so like I said, the bike was just like sitting for months. Like, I just was like bummed even looking at it. And so finally one day, I remember Kevin was like, "What's up, dude? Like, don't you miss it?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure." But I'm like pissed off. Like, I had just finished this thing. Like, this was like a huge like labor of love, a lot of money, a lot of time. And so, anyways, I get in the garage, drink a couple beers, and I start tearing the whole thing apart again. Yeah, redid the whole thing, got the frame straightened by that frame doctor in Anaheim or whatever. He kind of went through the whole thing and made sure that everything was like okay, because the neck was a little tweaked. Springer was done. Sissy bar was done. There was a couple of little small things that I had to switch out. But yeah, so then I started putting the whole thing together again. I had this 33.4 like front end already, like previously, that I was thinking about running like instead of the Springer from the very beginning. Picked it up from Don Lang, actually. He gave me a great deal on it. I always liked the way that these looked. And it actually like ended up having the same stance as it did before. Like, I like slightly taller front ends. I don't know. There's just something like fun about like being a little bip higher up, like for canyon riding and stuff like that. It's just nice. And so I threw that 33.4 on, got the spool on there. Sundeep helped me with the Sissy bar, fabbed that up, threw that on. New like little shift knob, because the one had flown off from when I got hit, the old one, so I picked the new one up. That's pretty cool. And that's really, and then so the tins were smashed, so I had to basically Frank Vicious redid the same exact colorway, just a different graphic this time. Like, the flames are like a little different or whatever. So that was pretty cool. And then really other than that, it's just been like slowly like dialing it in and fine tuning it to run well, and obviously lots of help from friends, like just to get it where it needs to be. And then now I have the only other big change besides that is the wheel, like the rear wheel changed basically now. So it's 16 with a sprocket and a disc brake. So yeah,
Rad.
That's how it is where it is.
What's your favorite part on the bike?
Damn, I've actually never been asked that. I think I really like the shift knob a lot. I don't think I've ever seen any like a shift knob like that. But I think that, and I love the bars, like the double. I've always been a big fan of the double Z's. James makes those, and I remember the moment I saw he started doing pairs of these, I was like, dude, I need you to make me a set. So I'd say the bars and the shift knob are like, yeah.
Your two favorites?
Yeah, those are like probably my two favorite things on the bike.
I've always liked how you have like the Evo chopper, but you threw it in the 4-speed, and it kind of like, a lot of people, I feel like right now when they build an Evo chopper, it's a lot more of like almost like a dyna but chopper, like
yeah.
The T-bars, whatever. But then I feel like you've done a good job of maintaining that like high up tight stance, but it's kind of like a classic chopper, but then it's fast as shit, you know.
Like skinny, still super skinny, and like just like easy to split lanes with, and feels like really light and nimble. I mean, you've ridden it.
Yeah.
Like you know how it goes. Really funny like side thing too, which you know about. When I first threw the whole like clutch together and everything like that, the Diaphragm, the original Diaphragm plate that I had in there was that crazy gold like drag racing one, and this thing just wanted to just pop up immediately every single time. So it took me like, I don't know, a couple months of asking a bunch of, I had no clue what was going on. I asked a bunch of people, whoa, this and that, and they're like, oh dude, you got to get the silver one over. Switched it out, rides smooth now, but it was really hilarious. For a good month, I was just like wheeling out of like without wanting to, out of like lights and shit, and just like, it was just hectic. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, and you've done a couple pretty good trips on this bike.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any major issues?
Honestly, it's always like nothing big, honestly, at all. One time there was like something weird where it like the bike was just, like idling really, really weird, and I ended up doing all this stuff, like took the manifold out. Curly helped me out. We like did a bunch of stuff with that, and then it ended up just being like some weird electrical issue that was like not even a big deal. But honestly, really nothing major. This motor is just like, it just like wants to just go, just constantly. Like I don't really like ever worry about that.
So did you kind of build it with the intention of taking it on long trips?
Yeah, that was kind of the goal. I mean, the goal was like to have a bike that I wouldn't have to spend too much money to fix if anything really crazy happened to it. Like, you know, these motors go for like 2 G's. or probably even less. So I just figured, I was like, if I ever need to switch this out, like, it's not even a big deal.
Yeah.
And yeah, the goal was to go on big trips because we've always, you know how it goes, like, we've always been one to, like, our group always likes to go, or not Mammoth, but Bishop, Lone Pine, whatever, Death Valley, that kind of stuff. So it's a bike that feels like right for that. And I mean, shit, dude, we ride these things like off road and stuff sometimes too, and it's still fine. Like, like Troda and shit, like a dirt bike. It's like pretty hectic.
Yeah,
but it works.
Absolutely.
You know, whatever's clever.
You think you'll change anything up on the bike?
So, I've thought about it, and then I'll like look at this bike and be like, fuck, I don't know. It is kind of like it's like now finally to the point where I want it almost exactly. So I'm like, kind of like, if it ain't broke, like, don't fix it type shit. But then, I don't know, part of me thinks it'd be kind of fun to do like one final version of it. And if I were to do that, I don't know, maybe like a sporty tank, maybe like a slightly like lower front end that's like not so kind of like wobbly. But I think other than that, like, I think like, for instance, if I'd have known, like, I probably would have ran this, like a disc brake from the beginning instead of like a juice on this, just because there's so much power behind this motor that it's like, it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, for riding, stopping.
I always said if I had an Evo chopper, I would definitely have a disc on it. It seems a little spooky to have just a drum.
Yeah, some like tough guy shit, like PM or something. This is just like a standard soft tail brake, because I like it kind of like, it gets hidden in the frame a little bit. But yeah, I don't think too much, honestly. I don't know. This bike's kind of like, it's been through like 3 or 4 versions, so it's just like, I think it's good as is now at this point. Like, you know, why change it too much? But yeah, it's rad. It's got a lot, like, so many little details of, there's nothing too crazy about it, like fab wise or anything, but there's just stuff that I really like, that, like, for instance, like the pegs, Jim fabbed those up, and they're just hard pegs that are like bolted to the, almost like an Elite style, but they're like flat stock. And like, well, when I got hit, that saved me from probably like crushing my entire belt drive.
Yeah.
That you can see the gash in the peg right there.
Yeah,
and
and they're not even bent.
They're not even
pretty
bent.
Impressive.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're dense. So like, that's really like a nice thing to have. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like where it is. Well, you know that I had the slash cut fishtails on there, and those fell off, or one fell off on the last trip we just did up to what did we do? Where did we go? Up to Santa Barbara and whatever, Santa Cruz with the homies. One fell off, and then I just like took the other one off because it just looked dumb. And I'm actually like into it. I think it looks kind of cool. Like, I'll probably actually just leave them off like that for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I've always kind of liked that you traded a lot of stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, so when you had Cameron go through the motor, didn't you buy him a shovelhead motor?
Yeah. So basically, when we were starting to tear the bike down,
like how much, besides buying the softail for however much you bought it for, did you spend any other money on the bike, or did you kind of trade everything?
I found like little like tricky ways to kind of, so I'll explain a couple of the different trades on this bike. So I design shirts and stuff, and do like graphics for people and stuff. So that's paint. I traded like Frank some graphics for paint. I traded James some graphics for bars. Those were those things. And then so the Cameron story about the actual shovelhead motor, pretty funny. So like I said, I had no clue, you know, when I was first putting this thing together. So I was just like, all right, dude, like, teach me, like, show me what's up. Like, I know nothing. So I remember I was also like trying to get my bread up a little bit. So I basically was like, all right, I'm going to start hunting around for like a shovel or some kind of parts and stuff that I can flip to make more money to put into the bike. So a really cheap motor, it was a cone shovel motor, I think SNS bottom or something like that, with a 4-speed transmission. Some dude in San Diego had it, like in the cuts, like in the middle of like nowhere. So I drove out, and he's like, I'll do it for $3K or something like that. And I was like, all right, this dude will probably be down for like $2,700. So I show up with the $2,700, and like, he's like, nah. And this was like, dude, it was like 30 minutes away from the fucking closest bank. So he's like, nah, I'm not doing that, dude. I told you 3K. I'm like, fuck. And I literally just had that much money. That's probably like stupid on my part, but whatever. I just was like dumb and like, you know, didn't think about it. So I drive another 30 minutes back, go to the bank, take another couple $100 out, go back, meet him up, buy the motor with the transmission. He did end up like still giving me a deal. It was like pretty cheap for what I got. And I come back, and then I'm like, me and Cameron are talking, and he's like, well, what's up with that shovelhead? So I flipped I sold the transmission, flipped that for a couple extra $100 that went into this bike. And then Cameron was like, what's up with the motor? And I was like, well, I don't know. It's just sitting. I was just going to like hold on to it for like a later on project or something. And he's like, well, let me get that. And then I'll help you. Like, I'll see you through with this bike. And that's kind of like one of the bigger trades that I had done with that. So it was like, I ended up, I don't know how much the motor was probably ended up being worth, but it was cool because he helped me out with this whole thing. So that was, I've traded my way through a lot of this stuff. It's pretty funny.
That's sick.
Yeah. As far as like the whole like stance goes and stuff, like coming from being more into dirt bikes and like starting off with smaller, like, you know, more nimble bikes, it's weird because people are always like, well, isn't the 33.4 like super like floppy and crazy? And it is a little like wiggly for sure, but I don't know. I feel like when this bike gets to a certain speed, and like, you know how I like to, like, I love canyon riding. And like when this thing gets into the canyons, like it feels actually like really like nimble, and it feels like it like glides almost. Like it turns really, really nice and takes all the turns really well. So I feel like although it does have that like a little bit more like nutty stance on it, like it still feels right to me. I don't know. It works.
Yeah.
You know, for the type of like riding that I like to do. And it's actually pretty comfy too, like freeway, like, or highway riding or whatever. Probably just because of like the peg setup and all that stuff too. But I don't know. It's just it's really like kind of funny because it is really like a no nonsense bike. There's not anything like that special on this bike. Like, you know, if you were like to really look at it, there aren't that many crazy like little details or anything like that. You'd be like, whoa, like look at the fabrication on that. Like it's kind of a no nonsense bike. It's a Paco frame. You know, it's a lowbrow Wassel tank. They're just parts that, you know, like they can be easily replaced, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, I think I've like learned my lesson spending like lots of money on certain things that just don't really work for me. Like I like it a little more simple. Like I like to be able to get in and like change shit up if I need to really, really quickly, or if I need to like fix the bike on the side of the road. Like I'd kind of rather have that than having to deal with some crazy like, you know, pipes that are in the way that I can't like move, you know, get in and out through or whatever. I don't know. It works for me. Feel me, dog?
Yeah, I feel you. Cool. Do you want to talk about any of your favorite memories on this bike?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I think I have like the two like most standout ones. Was the first one was from the get-go. It was funny. I had actually, like I had mentioned earlier, I had put the bike back together for the second time around, you know, after the accident and stuff. And I remember there was a trip happening. Honestly, I'm blanking on where it was. I think it might have been up to Lone Pine. There's a trip happening up to Lone Pine, and I had just finished my bike 2 days before. Like, gotten it all together, gotten it running. Grant comes over, and I'm like, just just trying to get all my shit together. Like, just throwing my stuff on my bike, just whatever tools I can just find, just throwing everything in the bag and sleeping bag, whatever else. And he like I wheel the bike out, get it started, and he starts like looking at everything to make sure. He's like, well, you just finished this, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, dude, like the fucking bolts from the risers are like rattling out. It's just like hectic. And so that whole trip was crazy from the get-go because I just was nervous about something happening the entire time. Because again, I'm new to this, so I just was like still figuring shit out. And I remember this was one of those trips where it like started off so shitty for me and then just got really like good afterwards. I remember going through Angeles Crest. That was like the start of the trip, and the old like clutch lever that I had on here was like one of like the cheap like V-twin style ones, and I was in the back because I was like tinkering with my bike still, so I got caught behind a little bit. And I remember it broke in one of the bends where that shit was nutty. It broke in one of the bends, like when you're like in the deeper part of the canyon where there's no like emergency lane on either side. And I'm basically there's a probably 2 foot space that I'm like stuck in. There's a little bit of dirt right here, and I'm like holding the bike up. It's in neutral, like with the jockey shift, and my lever's broken. And I start like rummaging through my bag. I don't like have anything but some like picture hanging wire. I like always bring that because I feel like it'll like work. But it like wasn't like cutting it. And, you know, typical shit, of course, like how these things work. Some like I forget what you call them, like the workers that go through the canyon that like help like clean everything up and like just like make sure
Caltrans
like a Caltrans type thing. he pulls over. He's like, "Hey, you good?" I'm like, "Not really, dude. Like, this thing is smoked. Like, whatever bolt fell out and like the lever's not working." And he had, you know, those little like flags that they run, like a little green flag that has like the it's like the same thing, like that picture hanging like style wire or whatever. He like took it off the little flag that he had for like a caution sign, gave it to me, and I wrapped the entire thing around whatever like little pivot points right there into the lever, like threaded it through and just like braided it. And then I was able to like keep riding through the canyon and like made it out. That was the shitty part. And then it just got like amazing after that because it just worked for the rest. I just ran it like that for the rest of the trip because I'm lazy. And that was just like some of the best riding I had gotten on that trip. That was really good. But I remember being next to, I think Jim came on this trip. And I remember like it was like the sun was setting and we were making our way from Lone Pine to Bishop that day. And that's like when the sun starts setting on like the Eastern Sierras and everything. And we were like locked in. You know when you like lock in and you're like, damn, this is sick. Like we're both like on the same kick right now. And we just jammed. It was just me and him jamming together. Everyone else had already was behind or in front. And we just were like locked in, just like putting through all the way up to Bishop. And it was like one of the best like feelings ever. I was like, fuck yeah. Like I just put this thing back together again. It works, kinda. And yeah, it was just rad. That's probably one of the funniest memories or coolest, funniest memories I have on that bike. I got so lucky that dude was able to help me out.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Mm-hmm. I'd never told anybody that.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't even know that happened.
Mm-hmm. And then the other one, more recently, we just did a trip with, you were there, we went up to Santa Cruz for Curtly's birthday, and we were on our way back, jumped on the 154. So just before that, we were at the gas station. Shai opens up a pack of cigarettes, and I had asked him the night before if he had any more shrooms left. So he takes out this little stem. He's like, "Hey, my goon, I have one more of these for you." I'm like, "Sick." So I pop it, you know, and we're starting to ride, whatever. So we finally get into the canyon, 154, like near like Lake Cachuma, and he looks over at me. He's like, "Oh, how you feeling?" Whatever. Like they're starting to kick in now. I pull over to take a leak real quick, get back on the bike, and I was like, just in it, like I was like just jamming. And I remember, you know, as you go through the canyon a little bit, you get to this peak point, and then it's all like downhill into Santa Barbara, and that last like 7-mile stretch, I straight up like didn't feel like I was even like controlling the bike. Like I was on some silly shit, just like, this is insane, just losing my fucking mind, dude. Somehow made it to the gas station, felt great, it was awesome, and then it just felt like the bike was just gliding through the canyon. It was really fucking rad. But that's probably like another really solid one that I've had on it more recently. But yeah, it's been good.
It's cool. It's so fun. Like, we were just on this last trip with everyone up in Santa Cruz, and like, you know, for years you've had dynas and stuff, and then I've had the FXR and the dyna, and we're always like, I don't know, I feel like for a long time our crew, like, everyone was kind of on like sportsters and dynas, whatever. And then on this last trip, like, everybody had a chopper.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so cool. And like, we were riding, and I was like, dude, it's pretty nice that 8, 9, 10, whatever years later, like, we're still going on trips, and we still have like, you know, everyone's putting forth an effort to like keep and maintain these bikes, and that kind of is at the center of all this, which is cool. I think that's at least, you know, I know this is your video, but that's what kind of draws me into all
No,
this.
100%. And we're still spending 45 minutes at gas stations.
That's the best part.
That's life, baby.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Alex.
Love it. A huevo,
Right.
fool.
Peace.